When Susan makes a shocking discovery, will it have to do with the truth about her good friend Dr. Marlena Evans? At the Kyriakis mansion, Maggie grabs a scone as Victor is engrossed in a story on his tablet. It's about Ava's arrest for suspicion of killing Carmen. He's happy to see her behind bars and says the Salem PD lockup must be overflowing with prisoners. Justin appears and says some spots just opened thanks to Victor and Steve. He also announces he won't be disbarred now that Trask dropped all the charges against him. Maggie is grateful and asks what Trask got out of this. Victor reveals he hired Steve to find and deliver Kristen to Trask. Justin thanks his uncle for what he did, and he and Bonnie owe him. Bonnie enters with a bottle of champagne and says it's time to get the party started. Victor is stunned because he only arranged for Justin and Xander to be released. Bonnie explains Patch renegotiated the deal to include herself and Gwen. Justin thought his uncle finally did something nice for a change. Victor did, just not for Bonnie. Maggie tells Victor to let it go because she's sure Justin and Bonnie want to put this behind them. Justin suggests they pick up right where they left off and get married today. Bonnie is thrilled. Justin just needs to call the Justice of the Peace, Steve and Kayla. They take off to change, and Victor announces that he's going to kill Steve. At the Brady pub, Jack thanks Steve for coming through for him and getting Gwen released. Steve felt he owed Gwen a second chance given he's been given so many. Jack says he has too and feels Gwen has changed and is done with the lies and scheming. At the station, Gwen is released and reunited with Xander. Trask tells Xander and Gwen the only reason Gwen has gone free is that Steve and Victor played hardball. However, in return, she got the bitch who murdered her daughter. Trask goes to leave, but Xander stops her and reminds her that she needs to return his $1 million. Trask tells him to come back in an hour as she needs to file the paperwork. In the interrogation room, Kristen is pleased to see Chad. She asks about Edge, but he reveals Edge isn't coming. He hands her a letter from him. She reads it and Edge explains he can't take her case because it will look bad for Demera Enterprises. He promises to help her behind the scenes, but not publicly. Kristen thinks without EJ's help she could spend the rest of her life behind bars. Chad says Edge has hired a top-notch attorney for her. Kristen calls Edge a coward for not telling her personally. She thanks Chad for coming down to support her. She knows she's in this mess because of Victor and jokes she should stab him in the heart again. Later, Trask enters the interrogation room and gloats to Kristen that she's going away for a very long time and she's going to make sure of it. Kristen is sorry about Haley but says it was an accident. Trask tells her to shut it with her excuses. She lost her daughter because of her and she's returning the favor taking Kristen away from Rachel. At the hospital, Abby asks Kayla for help proving that Gwen is lying to her father. Abby fills her in on Snyder blackmailing her trafficking drugs to keep her dad from finding out she was a sex worker, which she thinks is a lie. Abby believes Gwen is hiding something much worse. She asks if she can look at Snyder's office to find out what he really was holding over Gwen. Kayla lets Abigail into the office. It's been cleared of patient files, all that's left are Snyder's personal belongings. Kayla leaves her, and later Chad arrives to help Abby search the office. In one of the books, Chad discovers a copy of a medical record. Abby looks at it and it's of Gwen's miscarriage. She notes that the report on the exam and finding of the miscarriage took place hours before their argument on the steps. Abby puts two and two together. Meanwhile, Steve arrives at the hospital to try and steal Kayla away during her break. Kayla begins to tell Steve that Gwen might still be lying to Jack. Before she can say anything, Steve gets a call from Justin. Xander and Gwen return to the Horton house, and Xander gets started looking online for a vacation getaway for them. As they daydream about sandy beaches, they passionately kiss and begin to make love on the couch only for Jack to walk in on them. He apologizes for interrupting and tries to make a hasty exit. Gwen tells him not to go and she's so happy to see him. Jack hugs her and welcomes her home. He suggests they toast to their freedom and a fresh start for all of them. Xander gets a message from Trask that he can come to collect his money. He tells Gwen he'll be back shortly. Once alone, Jack asks if this makes her and Xander official. She supposes it does. Jack gives her his blessing. Gwen thanks him and calls him Dad, which Jack has been waiting months to hear. He tells Gwen that she is his daughter, he loves her, and nothing will change that. As they hug, Abby and Chad storm in. Steve and Kayla arrive at the mansion for the wedding. Victor is furious with Steve for cutting a deal to get Bonnie and Gwen released as well. He refuses to pay him 1 red cent and will never hire him again. Bonnie and Justin enter with bad news: the justice isn't available, so they have to postpone the ceremony. Maggie steps in and offers to officiate. Bonnie is shocked because Maggie doesn't like her. Maggie knows Justin loves her and that's what counts. Victor points out she's not even ordained. Maggie reveals she got ordained in prison last year. Maggie rushes off to write a script, and Justin and Bonnie ask Kayla and Steve to video chat with Mimi, Sunny and Will so they can all watch. The wedding begins, and when Maggie asks if anyone has a reason why they shouldn't be married, Victor raises his hand. Justin tells him not to think about it, and Victor moans it was worth a shot. The wedding continues, with Justin and Bonnie exchanging rings and saying their "I-dos." Maggie pronounces them husband and wife, and they kiss. Xander arrives at the station and Trask has his briefcase and his $1 million. However, she orders him to give the money to her unless he wants her to blow Gwen's life sky high. Chloe's got a secret, and given how jealous Philip gets, the last person she should probably share it with is Brady. Now, anyone want to guess who she decides to share it with? 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.